Hello, I am Deb Coviello, the Drop-In CEO, and I'm so grateful you've joined us on another episode where week after week I speak to the most amazing leaders who share their insights with you, and often they may even inspire you. And I do this because I care so much about partnering with C-suite leaders to help them navigate their challenges and opportunities with confidence. And this week, I am so pleased to share the mic with Keith Bearden, who is the CEO of Alter Eco Foods, who makes the cleanest, greenest snacks on earth. Oh my, that sounds so amazing. By adhering to three main principles: restoring ecosystems, improving livelihoods, and reducing waste. Throughout Keith's career, he has been a partner in private equity and has served as the CEO and on numerous boards of food and beverage companies in the US and Europe. He's been married to his wife, Amy, for 34 years, and they have two successful daughters and three amazing grandchildren. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So, for my audience, I have the good fortune. I love the network. I know, well, LinkedIn and being able to reach out and find these CEO leaders. And Keith was very generous. He agreed to meet with me. And the fact that he is in, the similar industry where I have been, the food industry, it's an amazing industry because you directly provide to the supply chain to people's meals. We bring family together, but there are also various challenges for which I want to bring his insights to you so that you can benefit from his experience. But Keith, I would love to ask you to share a bit about your personal story. So I'm going to hand the mic over to you.
All right. Well, thank you again. Nice to be here. So I grew up on a farm, and we actually still have the family farm in my family. My oldest daughter and son-in-law are actually managing and working the farm. It's been in my family since about 1835. So they're actually in the process of converting it to an organic regenerative farm, and we raise beef cattle. So it's my wife told me when we took over the farm a number of years ago that we weren't cattle farmers, we were grass farmers, because if we had good grass, we had good cows. And so that started the journey to restore the farm to more of an organic regenerative farm. But after that, after I grew up on the farm and went off to college, I never really thought I would ever be back on the farm. And but I majored in computer science and I started my career in IT. And shortly after joining the Dow Chemical Company, I had the opportunity to go into internal auditing. And I think that was probably one of the most transformational portions of my career. I spent almost 10 years in the internal audit department, traveling around the world and auditing various Dow facilities, because the thing that auditing taught me was A, you learn a lot more if you listen as opposed to talking. And B, when you listen to people, they'll tell you all their problems. And so, as an internal auditor, my job was to try to assess those problems and learn from the things that I had seen in the past, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and try to help them implement the good, get rid of the bad, and avoid the ugly altogether. And so that was very transformative in my career because we had a very limited amount of time. We would drop in on these locations, and we'd have 3 to 4 weeks to do an audit, and those locations may be $100 million facility or a $300 million facility. And so that was a very pivotal point. I left Dow because my wife and I decided we didn't want to live the rest of our lives in Midland, Michigan, which is where their corporate headquarters is located. And we moved to Oregon, and that's where I got involved with food and beverage. I hung out my own shingle and became a consultant, more a CIO consultant than a CEO consultant, but it very quickly led into being more of a business partner for my clients. I always felt like that a chief information officer had to know the business as well, better than anybody in the company, except maybe the CEO, because IT touches everything in the company. And so a good CIO is a business partner. So I quickly became more of a business partner to my clients. And one of my clients, Yogi Tea, if you're a tea drinker, Yogi Tea offered me the position as their international CEO. And so moved to Hamburg, Germany, and ran the international operation for Yogi Tea for almost 7 years. And that was my indoctrination, if you will, into the food and beverage industry. And so I've been in that space ever since then, working either on consumer packaged goods like Yogi Tea and Alter Eco, and I'll talk a little bit about Alter Eco in a minute. But also, I've run contract manufacturing facilities. I've run ingredients companies and superfoods companies. So after moving back from Europe with Yogi Tea, the kids graduated from high school in Germany and moved back to the US to go to college. And my wife said, I think it's time for us to go back over to the other side. And so we came back to the US, and that was actually when I got involved with private equity, because I reached out to a couple of different folks when we were coming back and said, hey, coming back to the US, what opportunities are there? And I landed in Cartersville, Georgia, of all places, and took over a company called Beverage House that was a contract manufacturing company that was owned by a private equity group and had been partnered with Martin Bauer, a German company. And they were looking to sell it. And so I helped facilitate the sale. We sold it to another German company called Dueller. Dueller is a big food and beverage ingredients company, flavors and fragrances. And I stayed on for a couple of years and helped them with the transition into their global entity. We implemented SAP. We bought 3 other companies and integrated them into Dueller North America. And then it got kind of corporate again. And I much prefer working for the small to mid cap type companies. And so I reached out to a couple of other private equity groups, and since that point, I've bought and sold and turned around a half a dozen different companies. And one of the private equity groups that I had done some work with was a group out of San Francisco that actually owned Alter Eco. And they asked me to join the board of Alter Eco, and I did. And that was back in 2020. And of course, COVID was right in the middle of everything that we did, but people still like their chocolate. So if you don't know, Alter Eco is predominantly a chocolate company. We have 3 different lines of products. We have chocolates, we have granola, and we have quinoa. And Alter Eco's been around for about 20 years. And like I said, I joined the board in 2020. In 2023, the parent private equity group decided they wanted to sell Alter Eco. And like a lot of private equity groups, they had owned it for about 7 years. It was time to flip that asset and move on to something else. And I believed in the brand enough that I raised my hand and said I would buy it. And they said, okay, great. I said, okay, now I need to go find the money. And so I contacted some friends and family and said, let's put together the money. And we actually put together a little fund, and we created a little private equity group of our own called Trek One Capital. And we acquired Alter Eco in December of last year. And I've been running it since then.
Oh my. Oh my. I know we had our discovery call, but I had no idea all of this that I'm writing so many notes here because I want to go in so many different directions. But congratulations on a very successful career and taking control of your future and building a private equity and building this company. Wow. Wow. I don't even know where to start here. But one of the things, I'm just going to go back a little bit. Actually, let's go back to the beginning. You said something about, I want to learn, organic regenerative farm. What does
Mhm.
that mean, organic regenerative farm? I'm not sure my audience knows, and I would love just a little bit more detail around that.
Well, it's an interesting dilemma because there's really no regulatory structure on regenerative at this point.
This is a good
There
thing.
is on organic. Obviously, the USDA
Yeah.
has an organic certification process. And Alter Eco, just to give you a little background on Alter Eco. So, Alter Eco, as you mentioned in the opening, lives by three principles: restoring ecosystems, improving livelihoods, and reducing waste. Well, restoring ecosystems means that we source our raw materials and our ingredients from farms that are practicing regenerative agriculture. And what that means is they're trying to restore the soil health and not using herbicides, not using pesticides, not using chemical fertilizers unless absolutely necessary, but using natural fertilizers, but also having the ecosystem. If you look at cacao beans specifically, they grow in the jungle. And so a lot of historical farming has been you go in and clear cut the jungle and plant a bunch of cacao trees. Well, that's what we call monocropping. And that was the way we raised products for the last 100 years. But it also leaches all the nutrients out of the soil. It destroys the soil health, and it leaves the products or the plants suspect to pest, to drought, to disease. And if you look at the cocoa market today, I could buy cacao beans a year ago for about $4,000 a ton. In April, they went to over $12,000 a ton, went up three times. And now they're still hovering around $7,000 to $7,500 a ton. And the reason for that is because most of the chocolate of the world came from monocropping culture, monocropping plantations, and we've had drought. Western Africa is where 60% of the world's cocoa comes from. And they've had drought for 3 years in a row. And those plants had no protection around them. So their yields have dropped. They've been more suspect to disease and to pests. Where in Latin America, where the other 30%, 40% of the world's cocoa comes from, they farm more in a natural environment in the jungles. So you'll have a cocoa tree that's got a plantain tree or banana tree above it that may have passion fruit vines hanging off of it. And if they have droughts, which they have, at least they've got some shade for the trees. They've got other plants putting nutrients back into the soil. And so regenerative agriculture is really trying to restore the health of the soil and move away from chemically induced production.
So I'm just taken aback, and thank you for that. Thank you for leading the charge in that and realizing that ultimately we have to preserve, give back, protect, because then the earth will deliver to us as well. So I really appreciate that holistic mindset and that differentiation for the brand that you represent. So, wow. So, a couple other questions. I'm letting that one of the things you mentioned, and again, this is going back a little bit to um, some of your aha moments. First of all, I also did a lot of compliance work early in my career. I came out engineer, wanted to go into manufacturing, and I went into the defense systems and learned a little bit about quality and just, inspecting good from bad. But then I had an opportunity to go into auditing, and it was the most wonderful thing learning what the standards were and then using a fine eye to figure out, are we in compliance?
Mhm.
And then later maturing through the process of, it's not about is it good or bad and writing people up, but it's about educating and understanding what already works well within a standard, and then highlighting what can be of additional value or mitigate any risk in their current process. Auditing and assessments becomes a value add for an organization versus an
Absolutely.
auditor being a threat
Mhm.
and a nuisance. So, sincerely appreciate your view on that, especially around listen more, build trust. People are going to tell you their problems, and then you can help them.
Mhm.
So that's beautiful. And I think the other thing that I really was taken aback is that um, Whether you are working in a corporate environment or you hang your own shingle and become a consultant, the thing that you said that really resonated with me was becoming a business partner. Because I do find professionals that are in the food space. They could be regulatory, they could be EH&S, they could be equality. I just got done talking to people in food safety. Sometimes, again, while people respect us, they may not necessarily value or they're overwhelmed. When we position ourselves in whatever function we are as a business partner, just trying to help and provide insight, value, and educate, you, they take on a completely different perception of you and value what you say as a way to influence people. When we just come in with our hat and say, okay, I'm here to audit you because I need to do a quality audit or food safety audit or an IT audit. Um, People don't get that partnership thing. So again, I think that's really a great thing that you have done in your past. So I just want to respond and react to that a little bit, but I really appreciate that. Um, Private
Well,
equity. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
a quick note on that. When
Yeah.
I hung out my own shingle, I'd never been a consultant. I didn't know really how to approach clients. And so, given that my initial take on consulting was really about how to help companies use technology to better their organization and to streamline their processes and improve efficiencies, I approached it as an auditor. I created what I called an IT snapshot, and it was a 2 or 3 day audit, depending on the size and scope of the operation. And I would pitch it to prospective clients saying, "Do you know what you pay for your IT? And do you know what ROI you get on your IT spend?" And most of the time, they knew what they paid for, but they had no idea what the ROI was. And so I would go in and spend 2 or 3 days, write a very formal report and give it to the client. And my pitch was, if you see value in it, you can pay for it. If you don't see any value in it, it's free. And I did 77 of those while I was running my consulting company. And by the way, I built that consulting company up to 12 C-level consultants over a period of 3 years. But we did 77 of those in that 3 year period. And then I sold my consulting company when I took the job with Yogi Tea. And I'm proud to say that it still exists today. It's grown even larger than it was when I started it. But of those 77, we got paid for 76 of them. And we got engaged to do additional work on 64 of them. So it was a
Wow.
testament to being that partner. Hey, we're happy to give you something for free if you don't see any value in it. But if you see value in it, engage us to help you build on it.
Hmm. I'm going to take a few notes from this conversation as I continue to build my business. And like I said, lead with value first. And if people value it, then they're going to hire you for that follow on work. So what I want to do is go a little bit into then the private equity space, because again, I want to learn a little bit more about that. You've been part of organizations, and then you have to provide that leadership within the private equity space. What are some of the opportunities or challenges that you learned about while in that space? Because again, it's a place that I would love to be able to be in service and provide value as well.
Open equity is, you can approach it a number of different ways. A lot of people view private equity as just the money guys that come in and buy a company, strip some of the cost out of it, increase the profit and then flip it. I don't believe in that model, and I don't believe in working with private equity that doesn't add value other than money, because you can get money just about anywhere at the end of the day. If you've got a compelling business case, you can get money from just about anybody. It's the private equity groups that feel like that they can add value beyond the equity side of it, that they can come in and offer experience across the industry, looking at the portfolio of companies. So the private equity group that we put together, for example, Trek One Capital, we're focused on consumer packaged goods because a couple of us have a lot of experience in that space. And so we're actually actively seeking new acquisitions to load into our portfolio. But working with private equity as an operating partner is an interesting position as well, because I'm not the finance guy. So I worked with Advantage Capital, which is a very large private equity group, 4 to 5 billion under management. I've worked with a private equity group out of New York called Bias and Blind Spots, which was an interesting little group, a very boutique private equity group, but had an interesting approach to taking over companies. And then I worked with Next World Evergreen, a private equity group out of San Francisco. And with all of those, they all approach their client, their portfolio companies with what can we do to help you? Now, a lot of times when you buy a company, when a private equity group buys a company or invests in the company and takes control, there's already an existing CEO or suite executives in place. And believe it or not, most private equity groups don't want to shake that and tear that apart and replace those people. They don't have a bench of CEOs sitting over here that they can drop in. But what they do have is they have operating partners like me that can go in and augment that CEO or provide advice or oversight or help them with strategic planning, help them open up new markets, help them optimize their supply chain. And that's how I got involved with a number of these private equity groups, was really more so as an advisor to their portfolio companies. And then in some cases, American Botanicals is one instance. So Advantage Capital owns a company called American Botanicals. American Botanicals is a very large ingredient company that sells into the food and beverage and nutraceutical space. So when I joined Advantage Capital as an operating partner, they asked me to provide oversight and strategic advice to American Botanicals. And I did that in more of a consultative role. And then within 6 months or so, they asked me to step in as the CEO because they saw that the advice that I was providing was valuable, but there was a little bit of resistance from the existing management team. And so I stepped in as the CEO. I ran American Botanicals for about 3 years, and then I stepped out. And the C-suite that's there now is taking that and going beyond.
And hence why this show is called The Drop-In CEO, because exactly what you described was what I was exposed to. I was about 35 years old at a startup optical networking company as the director of quality. Probably I was too young to be in that position. I was not wise enough. And we were struggling from financing to getting our first prototypes out the door. But a person like you, private equity, dropped in, and he was very human centric. He rolled up his sleeves, partnered with us to solve the specific business problem. It was myself and the director of operations. And after we solved those issues and built up our confidence at the same time, so there was that extra value add, then they pulled him out and then dropped in another executive team and CEO, for which then we took it IPO. So sometimes dropping in somebody for a specific amount of time for a specific purpose is okay. And it doesn't matter how long you're there, but being able to provide so much value and get it to a certain level of performance is exactly the reason why I have people like you on the show. And that's exactly what I do in my area of expertise. So, so important. I appreciate that story. But you also talk about being the turnaround person, turnaround CEO, the fix it CEO. And I'd love to know maybe a story about where you were dropped in and how to fix something in addition to what you just shared here.
Yeah. Well, alter ego is the biggest fix it if you really look at my career. I mean, I've done a number of them. But most of them have been in situations where they were looking for one or two key objectives. Like with Yogi Tea, for example, the reason I was asked to take over the international operation was that they weren't seeing any growth. The company was profitable, the company was operating quite efficiently, but they weren't seeing growth. And so that was a very specific, can you grow this business? Well, yeah, I grew the business from about 17 to 18 million in sales to 80 million in sales. But I didn't do it alone. I brought in a rock star sales team, but provided the leadership and the strategic objectives to go after key markets. With American Botanicals, they were looking to improve profitability. and really take some steps in terms of growing their capacity. So I built a new manufacturing facility, I closed one manufacturing facility, and I improved profitability by about 200 basis points. So all of that was very specific. Alter Eco was a little bit bigger challenge. Alter Eco was and is a great company that is very impact and mission driven. That's great, but you have to make money at the end of the day. And Alter Eco had lost money for years and years and years, and private equity had supported it. And so one of the reasons I raised my hand to buy it, in addition to the fact that I truly believe in the mission of the company and I believe in the brand. And if you haven't had Alter Eco chocolate, you have to go buy some and try it because it's the most amazing chocolate in the world. It's all manufactured in Switzerland. And the Swiss have been making chocolate for over 400 years, so they know what they're doing. But it had been losing money for years, and it lost money in 2023. I raised my hand and said, I'll buy it. And knowing that that challenge to get it to profitability wasn't going to be an easy one, but it was going to be one that I could rally the troops around. And so I sat down with the team and said, okay, we all believe in what Alter Eco does. We believe in supporting farmers. We're Fair for Life certified. We're carbon neutral. We've been B Corp certified since 2009. We were one of the first B Corp certified companies in the US. And so all of those are great things, but you can't make a sustainable impact if you don't make money. And so I said, let's find the low hanging fruit and the fruit that's laying on the ground and rotting. Let's pick it up. Let's optimize our supply chain. Let's improve our logistics, cut our costs. Let's focus on the things that add value, eliminate the things that don't add value, and let's make this company profitable. Well, I'm proud to say we closed the books in Q1 of this year and showed almost $1 million in profit. So we closed the books in Q3, and we're on track to do what we targeted of making 3 to 4 million in profit from a turnaround of losing 2 million.
Hey, I'm just taken in by this story. I mean, again, our listeners get to listen to your insights, your stories, and hopefully it inspires others to take a chance on yourself and take a chance on entities that you believe in. Because if you're so mission focused and you know that you, in your heart, you can turn something around, the universe is going to deliver, the right resources are going to be there for you, and you are going to lead a team to, in your case, the profitability. And what I love about this, and again, I get an opportunity to learn from you. I've worked with so many leaders during times of crisis, again, not profitable, having to shut a plant down, having to move the intellectual property, making sure we don't disrupt the supply chain or upset the customers. At the end of the day, I remember one leader saying we have to do it with dignity, maintain the trust of the people, that we're going to take care of them even as we shut the doors and transfer the knowledge elsewhere, because it was more about the relationships with the customers. We're in service to the customers. We will take care of you, make sure you have all the assets and resources. And I'm happy to say, in my role as the quality and OpEx leader during that assignment, that we did it successfully, no disruption of service. And the people, while they were sad to go, were able to find new jobs afterwards. And the receiving plants that were now going to service the customers, minimal to no hiccups. So I so appreciate what you do, being mission focused and helping companies during times of change, because as in your case, you were able to bring it from not so profitable to definitely on the upswing. So I love this conversation. I appreciate what you do. I love working with leaders like you, because again, you just very heart centric, very purpose driven.
Well, it has to be. I mean, I believe in, to overuse, to coin an overused phrase, I believe in conscious capitalism in a way that, it works both inside and outside. If you look at your employees and you work to make sure that they're getting a wage that is a good living wage and a wage that they can actually build some wealth. I mean, so many of if we look around the United States today, so many people live from paycheck to paycheck. And it's really distressing to me to have my team members that and I don't consider myself any different than everybody that works for the company, having them struggle with finances and not able to put money away. And we offer a 401k match. Well, I have some employees that don't contribute, and I'm like, come on, please, it's free money for you. Let me help you build some wealth that will carry you forward. And I think companies, ESOP programs, we're not big enough for that at this point, but ESOP programs help the lowest level, entry level people build some generational wealth that they could never do on their own. And so I'm a big supporter of those types of things. But then you talked about keeping the customer satisfied. When you're a consumer packaged goods company, everybody that walks in a grocery store is your customer. And so we focus really, really hard on making sure that we're delivering a quality product. I mean, chocolate at the end of the day, why do people buy chocolate? Because it tastes good, because they want to indulge themselves a little bit. So all the things that we do related to regenerative farming and being organic and Fair for Life certified and carbon neutral and compostable packaging, all that's great. But that's not why they buy the chocolate. They buy the chocolate because it tastes good and they want to indulge themselves. But now, if we can say, oh, and by the way, that great tasting chocolate that you just had, here's all the good attributes about it. I tell people we're improving the planet one chocolate bar at a time.
I love that. And we're going to end the show on that. But I just came back from Switzerland and I brought back a lot of chocolate. Swiss chocolate's very good, and I appreciate the connectivity. Again, it's all in the ingredients and how you take care of the them that create just a great experience. So your consumers are having a great
I,
experience and with purpose.
I had somebody tell me the other day, I said, our chocolates, I'd line them up against anybody because of the process that we go through, the way we select our cocoa beans. I'm flying to Ecuador on December 9th to meet with our farmers down there. And so he said, well, yeah, your chocolate is better. He said, it tastes better because it's made better. And I thought, wow, I'm still in that line. Let me write that down.
So, Keith, this has been a great conversation. I love hearing your stories. I sincerely appreciate the work that you've done, being in service to customers, your employees. That's the type of person I love bringing onto the show because that's how I operate with my customers when I drop into their organizations. I want to give you the floor one last time for any last thoughts or ways for people to contact you before we close the show.
Yeah, well, one, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been an enjoyable conversation, and hopefully the things that I've shared, somebody can pick up a nugget or two from that and take it back and use it in their own daily activities and their daily life of running a company. People feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Keith Bearden on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty well active on there. I respond to most people that reach out to me, especially if you mention that you saw me on the drop-in CEO. I'd be happy to respond. And I don't do it professionally, but I'm happy to help and mentor and coach when I can. I actually, just a little tidbit, I had two senior students from UC Berkeley ask me if I could have a call with them earlier this week. And they're studying sustainability. And they had identified Alter Eco as one of the companies that really focuses on practicing what they preach. And so I spent 30 minutes with them on a Zoom call. And that was probably the most fun I've had this week by far, is just talking to these kids that were so enthusiastic about what the future can bring.
So inspiring. And on that note, Keith, I want to say thank you for dropping it on the podcast. And I wish you well, your family, your community, your company, continued success. And again, thank you for being a fantastic guest.
Thank you.